Most people think of real estate as a traditional and rigid investment, as a pen and paper industry cluttered by procedures and high barrier to entry. What if it was all about to change? Have you ever wondered what the real estate industry was going to look like? Have you ever wondered if instead of going to the notary with your pencil to sign some papers, you could just sign a transaction online, or should I say on-chain? Have you ever considered that investing in real estate doesn't require for you to save hundreds of thousands of dollars or to contract a loan over the next 30 years? That you could just acquire a share or a fraction of a property that you can actually afford today. This future is at the door and it has a name. It's called the real estate tokenization market. It holds the promise of making the real estate market more trustable, more transparent, secure, and efficient. Hi everyone, I'm Tristan, product manager at Nexera, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to this new market, the real estate tokenization market, through one of its most expected players, Magma. Magma is what we call a foundational product for the next phase of this growing industry. An infrastructure tool that pretty much everyone on the market, every single player, every single stakeholder in a real estate project is going to rely on to operate. But I'm not the one to tell you everything about it. Over the next few minutes, I will have the privilege to welcome Matthieu, the CEO of Magma, for an exclusive interview. This month of November, Matthieu and his team are going to list Magma on Nexera launch. They will raise over $200,000 for this first public round, allowing their core community to support the project as early stage backers. My intention for today is to get to know Matthieu, to get into the world of Magma, and to extract as much information as possible for you to get the keys, to get an understanding of their market, the problem they solve, and how they solve it. It is an exploration, a discussion, and its content should not be considered financial advice. For appropriate guidance on your portfolio, you must consult an accredited investment professional. Now let's make room for our interview with Matthieu from Magma. Hello Matthieu, welcome.
Hello Tristan. Nice to be here.
Things were going crazy these days for you, for Magma, you're traveling. How are you doing?
Excellent. We are doing fantastic. I am now in Dubai, in the Emirates, and the rest of the team is in Europe and Miami. But we are all doing fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, glad to have you here. I know you're extremely busy. You're raising funds. Thank you for taking a bit of your time. I'd like to know everything about you. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, Matthieu? Where you come from, what you studied, and a bit of your adventures?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in France, 1975. So I'm not that young. I was only child. My parents divorced very early. I was 2 years old. So I got to travel a lot. I changed cities a lot. I lived in 10 different cities, including Miami, which is the city I lived the most for 10 years. So I consider myself from Miami as well as from Paris. I am divorced. I have 2 kids, 10 and 12-year-old. And that's it for my background as a kid. And then as for my studies, I studied law, international banking law at Sorbonne University. I have a postgraduate degree in international banking law, which I obtained in 1998. And then after that, I went to the US to work in a bank for an internship for 3 months in the 4th largest bank in America, Penn Weber. I was 23 years old and came originally for 3 months. And these 3 months became 3 years because I met someone at the bank that was day trading, and I completely fell in love with the environment and the job. And so I took my Series 7 on the New York Stock Exchange at 25 years old in 2000. And I was was quite young. I was actually the youngest financial advisor in the Miami office at the time. So I took the Series 7 and I was a financial advisor for 3 years for the bank. We were doing day trading. So it was, at the end of the 90s. And if you remember, I don't know if you were old enough, but this was the era of the dot-coms. The first
Sure.
technology company introduced in the NASDAQ. When I arrived, the NASDAQ was at 1800, and from 1998 to 2000, it went to 5,000. So I got to enjoy the ride, and that's where I discovered technology and finance. So that was very enlightening to me. I met the first day trader of the office that was day trading stock, buying and selling these securities, then in and out during the day, and I was fascinated. So I joined. I raised money for the bank. I spent 3 years there. Met incredible people, but then in 2000, the dot-com bubble bursted, if you can remember, in March 2000, and then we had a bear market for 1 year. And at the same time, we've been bought out by UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, and they were opening offices in Paris and Europe, all over Europe. And so they proposed me a position in France. And then I went back to France, and for 2 years, I worked at UBS in Paris, and I joined the real estate department. And after 2 years, I decided I wanted to be independent. So I created my own firm with the director of the real estate department.
So you actually started with finance. Your entry door
Yes.
to the professional life was not real estate directly.
Exactly. I
Okay.
bifurcated to real estate at the bank at UBS. Exactly. So we went on our own, and we created Meridian Invest. And for 10 years, we redeveloped residential and commercial properties. We did a lot of transformation of commercial property into residence. We did that in Paris and in Miami, and so for about 15 years, I redeveloped properties in Paris and Miami. And in 2013, I decided to go back to Miami to create a real estate fund. We bought 3 buildings. I had about 50 apartments that were old motels that I transformed into extended stay, Airbnb management. So I had 50 apartments, and I also bought a building that was the former bank of Al Capone. It was an office building from the 1930s, magnificent building.
That's cool.
That's
That sounds quite badass.
that was really cool. It had a 20-ton stainless steel safe in the ground and underground.
Wow.
And so it was pretty amazing. But unfortunately, this building gave me a lot of hassles and troubles because it was very old, and so he had 23 violations at the city that I had to close in order to get the investment going. Otherwise, we couldn't exploit the building. So
Well,
uh,
okay.
it
Hard
was.
start as an
Oh
independent.
yes, exactly. Especially in Miami, believe me, the permitting process in Miami is something quite interesting. I can say
Yeah, no doubt.
yes. So I did that, and then in 2016, 17, I had a change in my life. I wanted to do something meaningful, more impactful. I lost my father. That's when I had this kind of a revelation on what I wanted to leave to the next generation. I had sort of a realization that the world was changing very fast, and that we had a responsibility to leave something meaningful to the next generation, that the models were going to change a lot, especially with technology. And so I wanted to change. I wanted to do something meaningful. And then I met someone that gave me the opportunity to work with the city of Miami. So I owned this building, and next to my building was a smaller building that was owned by a gentleman that had purchased 40 buildings, 40, 1 million square feet, in downtown Miami. So it was like a little pocket of 3 streets, and he had bought all the adjacent buildings next to one another. So we met, and we were talking, and we got along very well. And I explaining my experience and my life and my desire to do something meaningful. And he told me, well, the reason I do that, the reason I do this assemblage of building is because I want to change Miami. I want to transform Miami. So
Okay.
why don't you work with me? If you have some ideas, I want to know what you have in mind, and I want to work with you. So I said, well, it really resonates to me, because I was
Hmm.
at a point in my life when I wanted to do something meaningful. So I said, okay, let's work together, but I need to have a team, and I need some space to work and create an environment where we can create a project for the whole portfolio. So he said yes, and
So, so,
yeah,
the project of working together, your place by his side was to manage the portfolio of assets of the real estate portfolio.
not necessarily to manage it, but to come up with a project for the entire portfolio, to think
Understood.
of the portfolio as a complete real estate integrated project where buildings could eventually communicate with one another. And the first thing that came to my mind was a smart city project. I said, well,
Okay.
it's true,
Okay.
you have the footprint, you have enough footprint to transform Miami. The world is changing very fast. Technology are coming over to transform industries. It was a time of, people were talking a lot about blockchain, obviously, in
Yeah.
Miami, prop tech, urban tech, and so I immediately, my mind went to smart city project. So I told him to give me a space, and that's what we did. And in this space for 1 year, I invited
Hmm.
companies in the prop tech world to create this project.
That's so I think I'm getting the storyline here. You started with two traditional environments with this first trading environments, then you went to real estate, and then you have a personal trigger that pushes you
Yes,
to create something slightly more valuable, maybe as a legacy for next generations. And then that's
yes,
the moment when you get to actual innovation, and your entry
yes,
door is are smart cities.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
But I couldn't do it myself. I knew I had the idea, but I didn't have the skills to build such a project on my own. So I told him I need a team. And that's when I met my actual partner, Cooper, who is a parametric architect. A parametric architect is an architect that is using technology to build this project,
Hmm.
preferably through 3D design and what we call building information modeling. And that's what we are using in Magma. So when I met him, we decided to do this together, and we invited companies in the prop tech world. So we had urbanists, uh, we had a drone company to do photogrammetry for buildings, we had building information modeling companies. So all together, we were occupying a space in downtown Miami, and we were hosting events, and we
Hmm.
were, looking at the portfolio, and we modeled the whole portfolio, the 40 buildings, in 3D, in building information modeling.
Was that a common thing to do by that time, to just have a
No,
3D representation of no?
no, not
What
at
year is
all.
that? What's the
2017.
so 3D modeling 2017 was not a common thing in the architecture industry at all. I'm surprised.
Yes, it was coming, and it was already a thing in the public space. A lot of companies in the public space, they have to have these 3D models, but it was not very common, not at all in the private sphere. But I immediately clicked and made the connection between blockchain and building information modeling. When I realized that those two technology combined together were going to completely revolutionize the way we manage real estate.
But that's where the actual trigger and aha moment for Magma comes to my mind, because I understand why working on this project you have nourished that vision of having a smart city project in Miami with a big real estate to manage
Correct.
already, and your first intention is to modelize it. This is an
Correct.
easy to understand
Yes.
drones, 3D modeling. Okay, at what moment do you realize that you need to put all of this on chain?
Um, I realized early that blockchain could be used as a notary and as a bank. As a notary, because you can record events in an immutable manner. You can cryptographically record events, and you can create digital assets. So at the time, there was no NFTs, but I already had in
Hmm.
mind that you could share these digital assets and use the smart contracts, where people were already talking about smart contracts. So
Yeah.
I immediately understood the potential of the two combined.
So this is the moment. This is the moment when you figured that the real estate market could have a complete other phase.
Yes.
Was there any source of inspiration by then? Already some projects going on that you had heard of that were operating on the real estate market via on-chain representations of assets of buildings.
No, not really, but there was in Barcelona, there was the first smart city where you had the connected districts where companies were
Mm,
working together, connected with the city. So I already had in mind a private public kind of partnership. And so what I did, I went to the Economic Development Partnership of Miami, which is called the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, which oversees all the investments that arrive in Miami-Dade County every year. Miami-Dade County has a GDP of about $140 billion yearly. And the two economic engines are real estate and logistics. So we built the project Miami Beta City on those two economic engines. And the concept, and we called it Miami Beta City because, first of all, beta means the phase in a software when you test a technology. And also, beta state is the state of your brain when you are in high alert, when you have a lot of things to take care of. And Miami is that kind of city with climate change and all the economic development that is occurring, that needs to be in constant state of alert. So, and beta, because it would be the first city to test this new kind of infrastructure. So the idea was to duplicate the real world into a 3D model of the city, connect the port and airport to it, and give that infrastructure to the stakeholders. So private,
hmm.
uh, asset manager, property manager, service provider, tenants would have access to that, and also the city would have access to that for energy monitoring, for a lot of other things.
It is a very complex interfacing right from the get go. Most of the platforms or the product ideas that emerge with one main user. Sometimes, as marketplace, you could have two sides: some user on one side, some other consumers on the other. And you, at that moment, are imagine a product that already has. So I counted at least 7 or 8 different stakeholders here. The property
Yes,
manager. Could you name them again and maybe
yes.
like slightly define what was their role?
Yes, exactly. That's the particularity of Magma. It's a multi-stakeholder platform that orchestrates data between those stakeholders. So you have 8 type of stakeholders in Magma. First of all, the owner of the building normally is going to give his building to an asset manager. In turn, the asset manager is going to give the building to manage to a property manager and a facility manager. Then you have the service providers that will come in the building. And then you have the tenants. You have the financial institution that might finance the building. And you have what we call the observers. Observers are a type of stakeholder that need to have certain information of the building, but not everything. It could be the city, it could be a notary, it could be a potential buyer that want to access the data room.
Mm.
It could be an insurance company. So these are the observers. So those 8 stakeholders interact with the physical building. And so we created a space pretty much like a Google Drive for the building where they interact with the 3D model. In the service providers, you have 40 categories. That means you can be a service
Mm.
provider as a
Mm.
plumber, as an architect,
40.
broker, etc. 40, yes.
That's a lot. I was imagining already a lot of them, and what a mess it could be to try to synchronize everyone on a real estate project when you build or when you have to to resell it. And yeah,
Yeah.
40 is quite a lot. So your ambition with Magma is to create uh, an interface that every single of these 40 different types of provider can deal with.
Yes, they can mint this digital asset. By connecting to our SDK, they will mint a digital asset. That means they will record what they agree on. When you have a
Okay.
building, you always have someone that asks for the service and someone that executes the service, and sometimes a third party verificator or another service provider that can also verify that information. So, what we build is a model where you have an uploader and validators. And when you have an information, the information can be validated once, twice, three times, four times. And the more it is validated, the more its reliability increase. So we build uh, on top of the validation protocol an index that measures the quality of the data. So you have those stakeholders, they do their thing in the building. Once they are agreeing on something, they will record it. Once it's recorded, we will measure the quality of the data. We will test it for ESG. Is the data improving the comfort of the occupant? Is it improving the air quality, the water quality?
Hmm.
We will test the data, and then it will come up with an index. And this index will define the reward that you get by validating the data or uploading the data.
All right, we're stepping into the technique. I feel
Yeah.
it like you're starting to describe a little bit more of your features and architecture. Maybe let's step back into history a little bit. So
Yes.
in my mind, you're still in Miami, real estate project. You still are in charge of this smart city project there. How do you
Yes.
transition from this to okay now with my co-founder Cooper?
Yes.
We have an independent project. It's called Magma, and we're not on Miami Beta City.
Yes.
We are more on Magma. What was this? What was this moment? How was triggered this
Yeah.
moment of creating an actual independent project?
So first of all, we presented that project to the city, and it was very experimental at the time. The technology didn't really exist, but we had the ID, so they didn't really know what to do with it, but they wanted to award us something. So we got awarded the keys of the county for the project, which was quite remarkable for us because it opened the door to us to work with government agency, and it sort of vetted the project. It vetted the entire idea of creating this public-private partnership on a digital infrastructure. So
One
we
of
are
the
very
benefits of working in the US, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, yes, exactly. And so also I became a co-chair of the innovation committee of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council.
Mm.
And so I was hosting workshops. So for the whole year 2019, I created the Florida Blockchain Foundation after that with the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez. And I hosted workshop at the port, the airport, gathered 55 organizations, private and public, at the city, the county in the foundation, the port and the airport. And so I hosted workshops to talk about this whole ID, this whole
Mhm.
infrastructure. And then 2019 came COVID, and everything stopped. The project, the port closed, airport closed, everything was stopped. And my kids were in Europe, so I decided to be with my kids during this period. So I went back to Europe, and that's when I decided to create Magma because I was in Europe. I had nothing else to do, and I said, okay, I'm not going to stay here doing
What a
nothing.
trigger to what a trigger to so many ventures, COVID, and
Yes,
it's impressive how many people had their
yeah,
professional life completely shook
yeah,
up by this event, and
yes,
this is when you transitioned.
yes, exactly. I would have stayed in Miami. I would have done it through the foundation. Magma would have been born inside the foundation.
Mm.
Would have created the platform as a foundation. Being back in France, the only thing I had to do was to create Magma from France. So that's what I did. I raised money. We raised a million plus to create the first iteration of the platform. And basically, that's what Magma does, is what Miami Beta City was envisioning, which is creating a digital asset that is shared between stakeholders during the life cycle of the building.
Understood. So before you actually created the project, I'm a little bit stopped on. I was asking myself about these workshops because I've worked in some environments where you have to educate the market. As you say, you come with a very innovative approach,
Yes,
which is quite ecosystemic and involves
yes,
a lot of different stakeholders. In my case, it was in the education market, dealing with universities and a lot of different stakeholders within those institutions.
correct.
Educating a market is quite complex. Workshops sometimes can be quite complex. You have some people that are very pushing for innovation, but also some people that are pulling and
Yes.
slowing down the process. So those workshops that you organized before actually creating Magma gave you confidence. People were chipping in. They were signing off on the concept. They
Oh,
liked it.
yes. Yes, yes. There were we had sometimes 250 people at the workshops. We also had two conferences on blockchain and digital transformation. That I think that triggered a lot of innovation process in Miami around blockchain at this time. What we did, it was really pleasant to live that moment. People realized blockchain had the potential to really transform the world, and that also Miami could leapfrog, because with blockchain, one of the main challenges is the transformation, because a lot of companies, they have their processes and the whole economy is based on these processes that hire third parties and
Mm.
verificators, and so the entire business model is bit like that. So they say, why would I change my process if it's working that way? And so Miami has this particularity that it's a new city, uh, with a lot of new construction for real estate,
Mm.
and very innovative. And so it's like a blank canvas. You can really sort of leapfrog, uh, compared to other cities like San Francisco or other cities that have legacy companies that could be very slow to adapt and to transform. Miami can really embrace the technology and like literally leapfrog other cities.
That's I think I get it, the whole story. So how do we arrive to Magma? Makes a lot of sense. So first, a bit of experience in finance. I mean, I start to get a grip on your product, and to have a grip on finance and have some financial knowledge has helped probably. Then you
Yes.
switch to you enter the real estate market through that door, and you enter in this big Miami related project. And then suddenly, because it's an ambitious project of a smart city, you need to map everything. You need to have every single stakeholder aligned on what are these buildings exactly that you will have a stake into.
Yeah.
And then comes COVID. I have to build that project on my own. But then you're in Europe, and the
Yeah.
mindset, the education, and
Yes.
the adoption of blockchain itself, of the technology, is not exactly the same.
Yes.
How does that happen? How did
You,
you
you have to
manage the
erase
transition from a
blockchain.
region to
You have
another?
to erase blockchain from your vocabulary.
Yeah,
You have to say it's a way to record safely information in an immutable
but
manner.
this is a necessary step.
Yes.
If we think about those products that are making it in the Web3 space, this is in my own reading of how this space is developing. But the more you manage to erase that complexity, because
Yeah.
blockchain is a complex infrastructure tool
Yes.
that is formidable. It has so many qualities: immutability, as you said, transparency. It is incredible, but doesn't mean that it is incredible for anyone who uses it in the background as an infrastructure tool. That consumers or your investors or the stakeholders, the service providers using Magma, they don't have to know that everything happens
Yes.
on chain, and to face that complexity. So I
Yes.
understand that you had to erase that from your pitch decks and start to change mindset as soon as you arrived in Europe. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. In fact, there is a convergence of needs that happens at the same time, especially in Europe. Not so much in countries where the economy is still, growing, but because of the economy, the condition of real estate development have changed. And so companies that were not listening 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because the market was booming, the interest rates were very low, there was no vacancy in the office buildings, construction materials were cheap. So there were a lot of reasons why they wouldn't use or they wouldn't change their process, compared to now where crisis, interest rates, the cost of material, between COVID, a lot of vacancy in the building, so they have to rethink the way the buildings are. So now they have a need to assess the buildings, they have a need to monitor the energy performance, they have a need to monitor the CO2 emission, they have a need to protect the resources. So for recyclability, you don't demolish a building anymore, you deconstruct a building. So now you need to implement those change. And so what was very difficult 2 or 3 years ago is much more easy today. And it's true that we don't talk so much about blockchain. We try to leave it in under the engine part that you don't necessarily look at, but they need those other technology, and there is a convergence because a lot of these new tools, they don't have the features of blockchain for validating the data. So if you use a digital twin, for example, you can look at the twin, but who tells you that what you look at is what you will find in the real life? Who
Mm.
tells you how to rely on the
Mm.
information you get? And that's a big issue.
Mm.
So blockchain comes in very handy for that.
As we were speaking of making Web3 products accessible, imagine that you might have some people watching this video that are not exactly comfortable or very knowledgeable about Web3 and blockchain. How would you explain Magma for someone who doesn't know anything about blockchain?
Yes, okay. So the way we manage real estate is very difficult right now. So imagine instead of having files where you need to look at information, that you have a 3D representation of the building that you can navigate. First of all, it's much more intuitive. If I talk about a window, I can pin the window and know exactly what this window is made of, if it has been broken or so on. Whereas if I look at it in a file, I need to look for the window in this office, and I need to look at the specific terms inside. Then Magma, I can say, is a tool, a collaborative tool that allows a real estate owner to create a digital representation of his asset recorded on blockchain. And these features, it opens a world of possibilities, such as contract for maintenance. It will increase the transferability of the asset, or liquidity, if I can say, because the more information you have, the less time it takes to sell the asset. So it's intuitive, and it's very efficient in terms of operating management. It will save a lot of operating costs in operating management.
Hmm.
So the same way a building has a physical address, now it has a digital address.
It rings a bell in my mind with an experience I had with the not with the building but with a car recently. I bought a car secondhand,
Mhm.
and as I was buying it, studying the car, the owner asked me to trust the fact that the engine received some reparations some time ago,
Uh-huh.
and that now the car is good.
Right.
I'm about to buy a car. The engine is quite important for that type of asset.
Eh,
That was valuable enough for me to care that this asset had a good quality, and to be able to trust the fact that this car received some work at some point.
yes.
And I was thinking, how is this still possible that I cannot track the entire life cycle of an asset that is valuable to me, to track the
Correct.
entire life cycle on a trustable or let's say trustless
Yes.
infrastructure where all the major milestones that this asset has gone through are recorded, including for a car reparations on the engine, which are quite critical. So I get it also. It's a much more complex environment. We're talking here about real estate and the complexity of buildings, and as you said, 40 different service providers that have to plug themselves on the work and the life cycle of these projects. But I get, of course, the utility. At some point, this need for transparency and immutability is rising.
And traceability. You need to know what happened and when. They have something very similar in the US that's for cars. It's called Carfax. Carfax
Okay,
is like a repository of information about the car. Everything that they do, they have to report to Carfax.
it is an on-chain representation of the car, correct?
It's not on chain.
Okay.
It's privately owned, but every time you service the car, you need to report to Carfax.
Understood. And it
So yeah,
drives trust to the next buyer if you have to resell it.
correct,
All right. Yeah, this is
correct.
there is actually not an extreme need to be on chain for that use case, but it's
Yes,
always better to know that the information has not possibly ever been tampered by anyone. And
exactly.
but yeah,
So I want to point out something. The information, the data itself is not on chain. That means it's not accessible to anyone. What we build is a permission-based protocol. For now, the data stays in our server or in the client server. What goes on chain is the proof and timestamp of that data. So what goes on chain is a cryptographic record of this information and a timestamp that says who
understood.
and when it has been recorded. So you will find those records and you will request the data, and we will, because we mapped it, we can query the data and get the actual information from the server. So it's not completely on chain. We are working in our roadmap to completely decentralize the data and use the
Hmm.
Filecoin network to fragment the data in little chunks and send it to several servers. So that will be really decentralized. But right now, it's, I would say, semi-decentralized.
Understood. Understood. May I ask on what chain do you think of operating first, or
So
chains?
yeah, so we deployed initially on VeChain, which is a fork of Ethereum, and we
Mhm.
are compatible with the EVM chains. So we can deploy the DTT on Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, any EVM.
Understood. Okay. So back to your, not exactly go to market, but at least your um, sales life cycle, your sales process, how you actually acquire a project one after another. So who is usually your entry door,
Yeah,
the persons you knock at the door of
yeah.
first, and then who also ends up paying for Magma?
Yeah. So typically, this digital twin token belongs to the building itself. What we build is a wallet for the building, and the DTT is attached to the building wallet. So it belongs to the owner ultimately, but as stakeholder can share information in the DTT, they can get rewarded for this information. So for putting
Okay.
information in that
Hmm.
wallet, they receive rewards. So in the end, it belongs to the owner, because when he's going to sell his building, he's also going to sell this data room, this digital asset, to the next buyer, which is going to obviously put a value to it and buy the building and its digital representation.
Understood. I think this reward part can be quite critical because as you have many stakeholders, and the risk with this kind of projects that and products that involve a lot of different stakeholders could be the length of the life cycles. It can just
Yeah.
kill a startup just because of the lack of immediate cash, even though you have a pipeline that's full of big projects. And then suddenly, with a reward mechanism, you might invite to everyone to hop on board much more efficiently and much more quickly.
Yes, correct. We are pledging a certain percentage of our profit to the reward system. So all the in the profits of Magma, a part of it is going to pay for the rewards.
Okay.
Also, owners and service provider themselves can decide that they can reward other service providers for the data. So they can put uh, tokens in the wallet, so to pay for rewards, but Magma is going to handle most of it through the mechanism we put in place in the tokenomics, where a part of our profit goes to the reward system.
Understood. So, would you say that this reward system is part of the key features of Magma? If you had to sum them up, maybe one, two, or three key features of Magma, what would you say they are?
So first of all, Magma is built on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the digital twin, and by digital twin we understand the data room, meaning the full data room, financial, environmental, safety, commercial, all the documents. The 3D representation that forms the digital twin. The digital twin token, which is the record of the validated data of the digital twin. So anything that has been validated goes into this digital twin token. And then the Magma index, which measures the data and measures the amount of rewards that can be paid to the contributor of the data. So those are the 3 pillars. And then as far as the features, we have a wallet for each participant. You will have a wallet created in Magma, a building wallet. So now the building can be programmed to pay whatever you will wish to pay. And the more data it has, more efficient it will be. And you can also have an AI engine to work in the building and to also work with the wallet between the stakeholders to decide if information is needed or not. You have the digital twin token, which is a dynamic digital asset that will follow the life cycle of the building. It belongs to the building wallet. You have 5 index level in Magma. Each index level corresponds to elements of the building. So the level 0, Genesis, correspond to the data room. So all the documents. Level 1, the structural elements of the building. What's contributing to the stability of the building, the foundation, the supporting walls. The architectural elements, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, we call it wired, all the connections, and the furniture. Those are layers that you can put information on each one of them. Then you have the Magma index that will measure the quality of the information you get. So if you look at structural level and you see 60%, that means 60% digitized. The information needed is there. Looking at the index, you know how much information you have. And it's also there is this validation protocol that orchestrates, who has access to what and who can validate what. So we took all the information of a building, all the contracts, and we said, okay, this contract is performed by this stakeholder and can be verified by this other stakeholder. So it's data orchestration and validation.
Understood.
Record keeping, timestamp, and notification. If a document needs to be updated, the stakeholder will receive a notification.
This is a very complete product already.
Yes.
How much time of development was it? 2 years of development in total, right?
It's gonna be 2.5 years of development, but we thought of this whole structure, for the past 7 years almost. So it's a very thorough process.
Understood. We will come back on your fundraising data.
Yep.
But you said that you could sustain 2.5 years with the development team, with a first fundraise that you did in near COVID, a 1 million plus fundraise that you did at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we just raised another 1 million recently, so it's 2.2 total that we raised.
Okay. Congratulations for those first rounds and for the extension, the width of that product already. It's a large one covering a lot of use cases. Are you interfacing yourself? So in the real estate tokenization narrative, it's not exactly a new one in the Web3 space per se. That's why I find your product and your initiative amazing, because it comes as a foundational product to an entire industry that will need it eventually. What we see a lot is the fractionalization of a real estate contract that allows an investor to chip in just 50 euros or 500 euros into a building that's digitally represented by fractions on chain. And there are already some marketplaces for this. Even there are some loan providing products. So are you interfacing yourselves or projecting to interface Magma with those marketplaces for real
Yes.
estate tokenization markets?
Yes, definitely. And this is precisely for that in mind that we build that, because we understand that real estate asset is a very inefficient asset in terms of transferability. It takes
Mm,
months to sell a real estate
mm,
asset
mm,
if you compare it to stocks or bonds. What tokenization does right now is just converting the shares of a company that owns a building into tokens to make them transferable. But it's not because you can sell the shares fast that you have made all the necessary verification of the asset
of
itself.
course, yeah.
So that's what we handle, that's what we take care of. No, it's precisely to connect to a fractional ownership platform that we did this, because our model, our digital asset connected to a fractional ownership token
Mm,
give full transparency on the asset itself. You can go into the 3D model. You can know who are the stakeholders, who is doing what, where
mm,
do you have permits, is it commercial, do you have a certificate for commerciality, all the documentation. You can check all the data room, see all the documents, so you know what you have and you know what you don't have. And that will, I think, improve a lot the liquidity of these assets and create
of course.
eventually the necessary
Mm,
environment for a secondary market. Because who's going to buy a token from you if you pretend like your car, like you mentioned, your car is a good example, because you have to trust someone that tells you this car, is solid and the engine has been repaired. But who's going to buy a token from you that you already bought from an issuer that tells you that the rent are such and the investment is such and such? So we believe that a lot of investments that are coming now are going to be programmable. All the blockchain environment is a
mm,
programmable environment, whether it's CBDC, stablecoins, whatever investment in blockchain is programmable. So you will have pools of liquidity that will come for green retrofits or even to buy buildings that will only get triggered if you can show prove exactly what the building does. So that's when Magma comes in.
this is incredible. I see it. I see it. It's and it's a. Am I mistaken? It's a unique product at the moment. There is no one acting like Magma for now on that market. I think
Yes.
for the people who are familiar with Web3 who are listening to us at the moment, maybe we could compare Magma to an oracle that takes in real
Yeah.
life data from what's actually around us to put that on chain so that people can then interact with this data,
Yes.
even if it's for more of a financial asset perspective.
Yes, correct. It's an aggregator, an oracle. You can call it an oracle.
All right. Tell us maybe about the current state of the adventure. It's been 2 years and a half. You raised 2.5 million already to finance the development of that product. That's it's already a complete journey.
Yeah.
What are the milestones that you'd like to tell us about that Magma the team has passed?
So a year ago, we issued the first property on chain with a building in Paris, 1,500 square meter building in the center of Paris
Wow!
that was on chain. So
Congrats.
that was the first DTT, the first prototype. Since then, we've been working on the finishing the platform. So we've done the level 0 Genesis, which is the data room. So now we can validate and record on chain all the document of the data room. And we are integrating now a 3D viewer. So the next part that we raise will help us integrate a 3D viewer, which is going to be open source. That means you can integrate a lot of different formats. We will then convert these formats into a universal format that is used by the main softwares, and we will tokenize that. So right now we are integrating the 3D viewer. We will be building the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the platform. We are also launching a utility token. We are signing contracts with real estate funds in France and in US, two of them.
So you're selling. You're selling already. You're
Yes,
already
yes,
on your product market fit.
yes, because we first of all the data room part is done. Uh, by the time we finish integrating the viewer, we'll be ready, to roll and to deploy to a lot more buildings. But right now we can already identify. We are we have a partnership with a digital twin company, which is one of the best and uh, the largest digital twin company in Europe. So they are proposing some of their solution that we are integrating, but we can already work with them and propose their solution for energy performance, CO2 emission, space management, maintenance. So we can already, deploy some of the features of the product, and we will be integrated completely with them within a year. We also offer the possibility to mint our token through our SDK. So we can connect to any systems that is connected to a building,
Oh,
and they can, as a white label, mint the Magma token for the building by just connecting to our SDK. So that will be ready, I think, in the next 6 months.
incredible. That's really impressive. How many people are in your team at the moment? How
We
big is
are
the
we,
Magma staff?
when we are full staff, we are 10.
Okay, okay, that's not an incredible amount of people either. That has been a very efficient development. I'm quite impressed.
Just for now, as I say, I want to be, clear on the development. We built the data room part. Now we need to integrate the viewer, and then level 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to take, I think, another year to have like a fully operational product where you can. So what you do, you create objects. So you create objects at the level 1, it can be the structure of the building. Create objects at the level 2, it can be the set of doors or the flooring. You create objects in level 3, it's going to be the air conditioner, etc. So you can create objects ultimately and tag
Mm.
those objects and input information in there. So, and that would be completely done, I think, within the next year, I would say.
So that will lead us to how you're going to what are you going to finance with the funds that you're raising at the moment and the launch of your token and all. Before we get into the funding of it, maybe let's have a better grip on what's actually ahead of you. What is on the technical roadmap of Magma that are necessary challenge that you need to overcome if you want to ship a complete version of your product.
So first, we need to integrate those solution in the tech stack, the suites for energy, CO2, waste, etc. We are integrating also an AI component that can read documents, pictures, and videos. We recently obtained a subvention from the Région Île-de-France for this integration. We need to integrate maybe platform for fractional ownership, or allow the connection for fractional ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have some integration. So that's why we are raising these funds, and we have a lot of work to do in finishing the integration of those. And so the as far as the challenges, I would say education. We need to create a culture of digital asset, a culture for real estate where you don't only work for the short period of time of you owning the asset, 2, 3, 5 years, but you are participating to the full life cycle of the building by
Mm.
contributing data. So it's a culture that needs to
Yeah.
happen, and it has to start at the construction level. When you start construction, you already have data that you will be able to use later on. And what is very costly in real estate is that you have a lot of redundancy. You redo the same thing every time you want an information. You have to write where,
Mm.
what address is the building, what type of building it is, where is it. When you have a 3D model with a representation, you geolocate it right away. All the information are there right away. You can start a contract from scratch
Mm.
just because you pinpoint this digital asset. So that will save a lot of money. So it's education and acculturation of this environment of digital twins, digital assets. That's the main challenge.
Yeah, no doubt. It it comes a bit of a hope for me to hear about a subvention that you received from the Région Île-de-France. So
Yes.
it's a region in France, the one that contains Paris.
Yes.
um, so now let's talk about it. How is the relationship with the regulator? How does Magma come to work hand in hand with some official register where at some point you have to say this building exists there at this address? What's your relationship with these official registers?
So for now, as you know, in the US or in Europe, there is a monopoly for title issuance. In France is the notary, in the US is the title agent. So unless we become notaries or title agent, we need to go to them. And so we have built-in where notaries and title agent can upload the title in Magma. So it doesn't mean the title is issued on chain, but it has a time frame of validity where you can transfer the title. Within 2 months, the title is valid for transfer.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's the state of the technology and the regulation right now. What we hope for is that with tools like Magma, you have enough information in your digital twin token to issue a title directly on chain. And that will be a game changer because once you
Mm.
start issuing directly on chain, you can use it as collateral. You can collateralize the title for fraction of it or for the entire title. It makes it much more easy, much more seamless. You can transfer it much more easily. The more information you have in the digital twin token, the faster you're going to sell
Mm.
your asset. So,
There is.
yes,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, because I imagine the actual work of the notaries these days. These people, they actually don't go on the ground to verify that a building exists. I was asking myself the question of the legitimacy of someone just signing a transaction on chain, saying, being a bit loose on their work and just signing, yeah, this building is now valid and transferred, when actually you could create a complete fake environment for anything.
oh, but that happens. You have counterfeit titles all the time. It's a huge
Mm-mm-mm.
problem for the industry in the US. Not so much in France because the notary system is well in place, but it's a big problem. Counterfeit of titles.
So Magma comes as a solution here as well. Now, creating a digital twins means that at some point there's someone in the loop that must maybe assert that there is an actual building somewhere. Is
Yes.
that something that
Yeah.
is considered in your workflow?
Yes, but I think now with the technologies and the integration of digital twins in urban environments where cities now they have to plan, urban planning through digital twins. You know everything of a city. With a drone, you can go over
Yeah.
cities, and there are so many
Mm,
images with Google Earth now and GIS. So I think it's really well mapped. It's more what you have inside the building, and that's what
mhm.
Magma is important. But from the
Okay.
outside world, I think it's pretty much mapped. Now the question is. Real estate shouldn't be a black box. When you buy real estate, you shouldn't trust someone for what he says. It should be trust should be embedded in what you buy.
In the system, yeah, correct.
Yes.
um, Now that you projected the work hand in hand with the regulator, that we have spoken about these digital twins, as I'm starting to have images in mind of buildings represented in 3D, one, and then a second one, and then a third, but in the same city. Should I think of a future where I would have a full 3D mapping that is of an entire city somewhere,
Yes.
or at least an entire
Yes.
neighborhood that is backed and put on chain by Magma. Is that
Yes.
something that you think of?
Yeah, that we believe there should be beta cities everywhere where this infrastructure shared by stakeholders should be in place
Mm,
everywhere. And in my opinion, it's also our legacy. It's what we will leave to the future generations. That's what motivated me to do this, because I believe that we are entering a new era. It's a digital era. We used to come from an analog era where everything was
mm,
paper
mm,
and trust put in intermediaries to verify everything. And we are entering something digital where you have a digital record of everything, and everything is code. Everything is code. And from your car keys to your medical prescription, it's code. And we are leaving basically code to the next generation. So by creating a digital infrastructure, we are leaving this code to the next generation. So it will require new skills, new curriculum, working with universities. Everybody needs to work on that for a more sustainable future, because you cannot improve what you cannot measure. But when you have this kind of infrastructure, you can measure everything, and you can do some prevention. You can run algorithm, calculate the outcomes of things, apply AI on a much more sustainable infrastructure that has been verified and with the features of blockchain. So I think it's a duty, I think, even for us to leave that infrastructure and that code to the next generation.
a duty that emerged in your mind and your mind only. And from what I understand with this conversation and the early part of it as well, walking through your curriculum, the different experiences that you had, um, you've built an expertise in that real estate industry, and you've been confronting yourselves to complex projects that opened your eyes on the reality that
Yeah.
with the current state of things we're gonna run into a wall, and there is an opportunity to simplify and to bring trust on that market. It's brilliant. What would be a North Star metric that you'd have for Magma 1 2 years from now? We were imagining a full city represented on uh, in 3D and mapped on chain, but that's a bit of a visual approach. What would be a key metric that you would like to measure yourself against over the next years?
So, as you know, we are in three different cities, and I have a very holistic vision of things for my experience, because I live in so many different cities, and I have a vision of the world rather than geographic areas. So,
Hmm.
my ambition is to build a standard for buildings that can integrate in different geographic location, that you can compare a building in Miami to a building in Paris to a building in Dubai, just by looking at the DTT, what it tells you, what the building can do, what energy
Hmm.
performance it
Hmm.
has, what you can do with that building. So for me, having like a standard of building assessment with the DTT would be the real milestone.
Okay, so the measurement of that key metric would be the adoption. The key metric would be um, new building owners acquired per
In
year.
Miami, Paris,
Um,
and Dubai. If
right.
it's adopted in those three areas, which means three continents, basically, and means we have a universal product.
Yeah, because when you say it like this, I identify Paris as a very old city where you have mostly existing buildings that you have to map. Then you have Miami, like semi new city, and Dubai, which is completely new infrastructure level.
Yes.
Um, Very interesting mix, and built out of your own also experience again and traveling a bit everywhere, and now in Dubai. Um, can you maybe tell us what you're doing in Dubai at the moment?
Yes, so the way we wish to operate is by we have a holding company and operating structure locally, because, as you know, real estate is very local. You have local operators, you have local regulations, buildings, obviously. So we want to have local structure where we'll open the capital of this structure to local parties, so developers, brokers, insurance company, management companies locally. So I'm opening Magma UAE, which will deploy the solution in the UAE. And I really love this market. They are very open to digital assets. As you know, the regulation are very favorable for crypto assets. They
They
are
are.
using a lot of technologies for buildings. They have already also a lot of high rises and new buildings. Most of them built, around the 2000s till now. There is a huge market for green retrofits because now the building come to a time when they need to retrofit, and they have big commitments of sustainability. So they are embracing also this area. So I think it's a perfect place for us to deploy our solution.
People who back you will get a utility token from Magma,
Yes.
which is the MGTN.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about the tokenomics?
Yeah, sure.
How much you're gonna raise, and what is this first cohort of backers going to get?
Yes. So first of all, there is a limited supply of 10 billion tokens, Magma tokens, MGTN. Um, we are offering them to building owners that can create their DTT with this token. They will pay us to create the DTT. Once they have the DTT built in, there will be a reward system where they can generate reward tokens as reputation tokens by contributing data. In exchange, they can exchange those reward tokens for stable coins or for Magma tokens. So this is an ecosystem that we are building for this utility token to be spent and to generate rewards.
It seems to be the definition itself of a utility token. It's coming quite soon. How do you feel as a founder of that project 2 years and a half ago?
Well, we are very excited and nervous at the same time because we want to be in line with now we know what when we enter the world of a listed exchange, we need to really fulfill our commitments, and so we are very excited but also nervous like every entrepreneur. When you launch a product and you make some promises, you want to be on time, and we know sometimes it's not always easy, but we're very happy to enter the market now because it's a great time, considering the latest event in the elections in the US, the change of policy that will happen. I think digital assets have a very bright days ahead of them. And so we're super excited to launch now, really.
Super excited, exciting times, and also
Yes.
a bit of stress, of course. What's your stress release mechanism, Matthieu? How do you release stress?
It's a good question. I exercise a lot. I do a lot of sports. Uh, I've uh, I've always been very sporty person. So I
Yeah,
run a lot and I do Thai boxing as well.
you do Thai boxing.
Yes.
It is funny. We have a couple of Thai boxers, including myself, in the team of
Oh,
Lexra.
right. We can make a
It's
few rounds together if you want.
very gladly, very gladly.
All right.
um, on the 3D representation of a ring. Uh,
Yes.
uh, Very
In real
interesting.
life, IRL.
In real life this time. Um, Thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to share?
So yes, we are very excited. It's been this project comes a long way. It's been 7 years in the making, 2 years of development, and we are really excited as we want to make assets governable and manageable again. So
Nice
super
one.
excited.
Nice one. I love the punchline. Matthieu, thank you so much. I'm very excited as well to see Magma and such a very well-grounded project that comes from very interesting curriculum and a lot of expertise. To see that project being listed on Nextera launch.
Yes. Also,
Best of success for this
shout out to
fundraise.
my partners, Cooper, the parametric architect, Jürgen, which is a fantastic blockchain developer, Emre, our product manager, who's great. And we also have a fantastic board of advisors that you can check on our website. And so thank you everyone, because I couldn't do it without my team. I'm very grateful for them and for their work. So let's go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matthieu.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck.
It was great talking.
And have a very good day.
Thank you. Take care.